are different for some very, very deep reasons as Republicans. And it is because in the state of Wisconsin, when we say principled conservatism, we aren't throwing off a bumper sticker. This isn't some 140-character tweet about conservatism. Principled conservatism in Wisconsin is an understanding of what the true and deepest idea of conservatism means in Wisconsin. And it is about building coalitions. It is about building networks of groups of people who might not necessarily agree on everything, who come together around a couple of simple ideas. And the first and most profound and important idea we come around is respect for the United States Constitution. And the second is limited government. And the third is that it is we the people who govern ourselves in this state. Now let me tell you something special about Wisconsin. We build coalitions here. Other states don't do this. In Wisconsin, since at least the year 2005, likely well before 2005, instead of just having a top-down party structure tell us what to think, what is Republican and what isn't Republican, and who to vote for, and we just do our duty, and we just go to the polls and vote. Since at least 2005, when I was enthusiastically involved with Republican politics in Wisconsin specifically, it has been about building coalitions. It's about going and finding people who are in the pro-life movement, and people in the pro-gun movement, and people who are about fiscal responsibility, people who are about reclaiming the Constitution, and getting them to work together toward a common goal of promoting freedom as a model for government here, returning power, in our case in Wisconsin, from Madison back to the people, and recognizing that while your one issue might make you somewhat different from somebody else's one issue, we all gather around those unique and simple, principled conservative ideas. That's how we turned a blue state red. It wasn't about bumper stickers and phone calls and just having people tell us what is Republican, or we'd still be under Democrat control in the state. It was about building these coalitions, recognizing that you cannot just simply order people from the top down. You have to recognize that people want to be part of what it means to be governing themselves in a we the people kind of government. That's what makes Wisconsin Republicans different, really. We build coalitions. Some of them are fragile. And we have managed to put all of those coalitions together to a common purpose. And in that common purpose, in 2010, we realized the election of the single most substantive governor in the history of the state of Wisconsin. Make no mistake. Hell, it still doesn't work. Yeah, it does. I need to stalk a stage. Make no mistake. Governor Scott Walker is the single most substantive governor in the history of this state. I am tired of people coming into my state and telling me what my state is all about. I am tired of people coming into my state and telling me how bad it is. Disagreed with each other on a lot of things, but we came together in this state, and we elected Scott Walker, but we didn't just elect Scott Walker. We elected Scott Walker, and a not just Republican, but a conservative Republican legislation to produce these reforms that will be paying dividends after we are dead.
That's right. Yeah.
Our children's children will be realizing the legacy of what we did in Wisconsin to change Wisconsin, and by changing Wisconsin to become a beacon to the rest of America on how to do government. What we the people will live is this state. I do not want to hear anybody else tell me what Wisconsin is all about. You do not come into my state and tell me that my state is filled with hatred. Do not do that. Wisconsin Republicans came together and they disagreed on a lot of things. But one of the things we never, ever came together on was hate. Yeah. We were hated for doing it. But sometimes that fight, ruffling those feathers and pushing back against the single biggest special interest group in our state, might generate a few tweets here and there, or maybe some death threats, as I got, and Governor Walker got, and the First Lady got, and her children got, and our legislature got. Don't tell me we hate. We did right by Republicans in Wisconsin. The hate was brought to us from outside our state because every single person in this country knew. Everyone knew. Cascade across 50 states of other legislatures and other citizens who saw what we did and realized they could duplicate it for themselves, and we were happy to lead. We were happy to be that beacon. But let me just help you take stock of what we have done. And when I say we, I mean we, but led by the most important governor our state has seen in its history. Act 10. We took the public sector union power base and told them to go pack it. And in the process, we saved Wisconsin citizens $5.5 billion. 5 years, that's $1 billion a year. Your property taxes went down, our schools got better, there's more freedom and choice in education in Wisconsin with a statewide expansion of school choice. We passed right to work, prevailing wage reform, concealed carry, castle doctrine, multiple tax cuts in the form of $2.7 billion. Budget surpluses until the cows come on. And that's just beginning. Government accountability board reform. We have and we told them to take a hike. John Doe reform. Voter ID. We do this enthusiastically, and the next major fight to come our way, we will meet that fight in full force with a smile on our face. And when it's all said and done, we're going to say, welcome to Wisconsin. And because of the governor I am about to introduce, we can also say it is open for business and freedom. Governor Scott Walker.
Crowd. Yeah. Welcome to Serb Hall, the best fish fry in the entire country. Could be close to home. Good to see you, Sheriff. Good to see you already with James Clark up here in the first row. Well, it's great to be here. I'm just going to spend a couple minutes telling you a few things here, but I got a question for you to begin with. How many of you think Wisconsin is better off than it was 5 years ago? That's because of all of you. That's because of all of you here tonight. I mean, think about it. And all these national folks, and let's take just a minute or two to give a little commercial about the great state of Wisconsin. Because of common sense, principled, conservative leadership, you all helped us obtain, not just electing me in 2010, but electing majorities in the state assembly and the state senate. Then you all helped me in 2012 with a recall election, and 2 years ago with a re-election in 2014. In each of those election years, you also helped us add numbers to the Republican majorities in the assembly and the senate. Look what we got. A better economy, a better budget, better schools, a better Wisconsin. Sound pretty good? When you think about each of these categories, you know, the report that came out from the federal government on jobs just a couple of weeks ago from the previous month, which was January, showed that in the state of Wisconsin, we had one of the lowest unemployment rates that we've had in about a decade and a half. In fact, the percentage of people working in this state is now the 6th highest in the entire country. And it was simple. We got government out of the way. We lowered income and property taxes. We froze tuition for the first time ever, 4 years in a row at all of our University of Wisconsin campuses. We got government regulation and red tape out of the way. We pulled back on frivolous and out of control lawsuits, and we put you, the people of the state, back in charge of your state's economy. And you know what happened? You responded. More people are working in the state of Wisconsin than at just about any point in our state's history. Common sense, conservative principles work. And as we work with the economy, we've had a balanced budget. In fact, we've had a budget surplus every year we've been in office. Our rainy day fund is 165 times bigger than we took office, the biggest in the state's history. And remember those protesters a few years ago? Remember how they said that public education was going to be in trouble? Well, I'm proud to say in our public schools, like the schools where Matt and Alex went to, ACT scores in this state are the second best in the country, and graduation rates are the third best in the country. Common sense, conservative principles work. And all of you in this state understand that. All of you who helped us knock on doors and make phone calls and talk to your neighbors and coworkers and friends, and most importantly, all of you who prayed for Tanette and Matt and Alex and I when we went through those protests, just like so many of our lawmakers did, you know what the battle's all about, but you know that it's worth it, not for us, not for Republican majorities, but for our children and our grandchildren. We thought more about the next generation than just about the next election, and the people of Wisconsin have responded time and time again to that positive conservative message. Thank you for making that possible. And so tonight I'm going to ask for your help one more time. Not just here in this state, but for this country. Now, I know there's a lot of people who helped us out, and some of you may be thinking about this candidate or that candidate. Some of you may have already made up your mind, but I hope particularly for those of you who haven't yet made up your mind, I can tell you about who I'm casting my vote for on Tuesday, and hope that you'll join with me, not just for what's going to happen in Tuesday's primary, but what's going to happen for the momentum that will come from that, and the impact it'll have on this country, on this nomination, on this party, and most importantly, the country as a whole. I'm proud to tell you that I'm endorsing Ted Cruz to be the next And let me give you 3 quick reasons why. Notice we don't shout, we just talk in this thing. You see, the protesters 5 years ago, they tried to shout us out. And we just quietly got the work done and showed that our results work. So I'm going to give you 3 simple reasons why I'm proud to support Ted on Tuesday to be our nominee and to be ultimately our president come this fall. First off, Ted Cruz is a constitutional conservative. You know why that matters? We have shown in this state why that matters, because you see, he understands that the founders of this country, some 240 years ago, the incredibly, unbelievably brave founders of this country had a pretty good vision. They understood that power should not be concentrated in Washington. Instead, it should flow to the states, and more importantly, to the people. When that happens, the people in states like Wisconsin can take charge of their government, not just here, but take back their federal government. We need someone committed to the Constitution, and that is Ted Cruz. Secondly, what I love is something we can really relate to in Wisconsin, and that is Ted Cruz is someone who's not afraid to take on the status quo. Right? We showed America what it means to take power out of the hands of the big government special interests and put it firmly into the hands of the hardworking taxpayers. It's worked year after year after year. It has worked. It's about time we have that kind of common sense leadership in our nation's capital. Ted Cruz didn't just talk about when he ran for the Senate. He brought that kind of approach and opinion to Washington, and you know what? It shook things up. It shook up the Democrats, it shook up the liberals, it shook up the status quo, and yes, occasionally it shook up Republicans in Washington, but he doesn't care because his constituency is you, the American hardworking people, and that's exactly what he's going to do as president. And to me, there's one more reason, third reason. So you got the philosophical and the policy reason why I'm supporting Ted Cruz to be president. And notice my reasons are all about who I'm for, not about who I'm against. I think that's important in Wisconsin. We like to be for something, not against something. The third reason is a practical reason. You see, Ted Cruz, without a doubt, is the candidate who can both win the nomination of this party, bring the party together at the convention, and defeat Hillary Clinton this fall. But between now and Tuesday, let's remember here in Wisconsin, and then let's remind others across the country, that as Republicans, our opponents aren't the people on the primary ballot. Our opponent is Hillary Clinton, someone who is so far out of touch with reality, someone that even the Democrats understand. That's part of the reason why Bernie Sanders has so much support here and elsewhere, is because even Democrats understand we cannot trust Hillary Clinton on Benghazi, on the server, on her emails, on leading this country. And so it is my honor to tell you who I'm for. And I just came from Oshkosh. I was there talking a little bit with folks at the Lincoln Day dinner in Winnebago County. I had the good fortune to sit for a few minutes next to Ted Cruz's dad, who was a minister. Those of you know me know my dad's a preacher. Both of us are preacher's kids. We know what it's like to grow up with the scrutiny of being a preacher's kid. We understand how our kids feel being the kids of a governor and a senator. And hopefully one of them will be a president. The kids of the presidents, so that would be the daughters, not the sons. That would be sons of a president. But thinking about being next to his dad, it just brought a smile on my face because I could see some of the things, the way my dad talks, and some of the things my dad does. And I thought about there, and I thought about growing up in that small town of Belden down in south central Wisconsin, and thinking about growing up during the 80s, just like Ted did. And growing up not just as a kid and a preacher in the 80s, but growing up at a time when the leader of our country was someone we could look up to. Someone who thought about the future more than just his own, but for future generations. Someone who had a vision of how to bring this country together, not by running away from his principles, but instead by embracing those principles and applying them to leading our nation. That was Ronald Reagan. Ted and I both came of age at that time. Ted and I both came of age, not in office, we both came of age. We were in high school and school at that time. And Ted and I, and people like Paul Ryan, and probably a lot of you here, remember that Ronald Reagan was our president. He was our leader. He was the leader of the free world, and we believed in him because he had a plan to move this country forward in the right direction. He was a principled conservative who was optimistic about the American people. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that's who we have with us here tonight. The gentleman who's going to win the Wisconsin primary on Tuesday, who's going to unite this party together when he receives the nomination in Cleveland, and who will once and for all put us on the right track after he's elected the 45th President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Ted Cruz.
I gotta say, your governor's a rock star. Let me tell you, when Governor Scott Walker stood up and took on the union bosses, and when we saw vicious personal attacks, when we saw vicious threats, and millions of men and women across the state of Wisconsin stood with your governor and said, "We got your back," I want to tell you, it inspired millions of Americans across this country. It inspired me. And it demonstrated that when we, the people, stand together, we can beat the special interests that are bankrupting our kids and grandkids. And the courage and principle that Scott Walker and the people of Wisconsin demonstrated in that fight over and over and over again is exactly the courage and principle we need in Washington, D.C. to turn this country. And I am so humbled, so honored to be standing here with Governor Walker. Scott, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your You know, you can learn a lot about a word by looking to its history, looking to its roots. If you look at the roots of the word politics, it has two parts. Poly, meaning many, and ticks, meaning blood-sucking parasites. And that is a fairly accurate description of Washington, D.C. But you know, we're here tonight for something a lot more important than politics. We're here tonight because our country's in crisis. We're here tonight because we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. Because our constitutional rights are under assault each and every day, and because America has receded from leadership in the world. And it's made the world a much more dangerous place. And yet I'm here tonight with a word of hope and encouragement. All across the state of Wisconsin, all across this country, people are waking up. And help is on the way. This next election is going to focus on three critical issues: jobs, freedom, and security. Let's start with jobs. I want to take a minute and talk to all the single moms who are working 2 and 3 part-time jobs, who've had your hours forcibly reduced to 28, 29 hours a week because Obamacare kicks in at 30 hours a week. I want to talk to all the truck drivers, all the plumbers and electricians, all the union members, all the working men and women with calluses on your hands, who've seen your wages stagnating year after year after year. Cost of living keeps going up, and yet somehow your paycheck doesn't seem to keep pace. I want to talk to all the young people coming out of school with student loans up to your eyeballs, scared. Am I going to get a job? What does the future hold for me? And you know, the mainstream media, they try to tell us this is the new normal. This is as good as it gets. Well, let me tell you, that is an absolute lie. You know, it's easy to talk about making America great again. You can even print that on a baseball cap. But the real question is, do you understand the principles and values that made America great in the first place? The heart of our economy is not Washington, D.C. The heart of our economy is millions of small businesses all across the United States of America. If you want to unleash jobs, what you have to do is take the boot of the federal government off the back of the necks of small businesses. If I'm elected president, we will repeal every word of Obamacare. We'll pass common sense health care reform that makes health insurance personal and portable and affordable and keeps government from getting in between us and our doctors. We will pass a simple flat tax. So every American can fill out our taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. We're going to rein in the EPA. And the federal regulators who have descended like locusts on small businesses, killing jobs all across the country. And we're going to stop amnesty and secure the borders and end sanctuary cities and end welfare benefits for those here who need it. Let me tell you what's going to happen when we do all of that. We're going to see millions upon millions of new high-paying jobs. We're going to see jobs coming back to America, back from China, back from Mexico. We're going to see manufacturing jobs coming back to the state of Wisconsin. We're going to see wages rising for Americans all across this country. We're going to see young people coming out of school with 2, 3, 4, 5 job offers. Critical issue this election is about is freedom. You know, the passing a few weeks ago of Justice Scalia underscored the stakes of this election. It's not just one, but two branches of government that hang in the balance. We are one liberal justice away from a radical 5-justice majority, the likes of which this country's never seen. We are one justice away from a Supreme Court that would strip the religious liberty from Americans all across this country. We are one justice away from a Supreme Court that would effectively erase the Second Amendment from the Bill of Rights. We're one justice away from the Supreme Court making us subject to the World Court and the United Nations and international law and giving away U.S. sovereignty. Now, two debates ago, Hugh Hewitt asked the question, about religious liberty and the Supreme Court. And Donald Trump turned to me. He said, "Ted, I've known a lot more politicians than you have." Well, in that he is correct. Donald Trump has been supporting liberal Democratic politicians for 40 years. I have no experience with that. But Donald continued. He said, "Ted, when it comes to the Supreme Court, when it comes to religious liberty, you got to learn to compromise. You got to learn to cut deals with the Democrats and go along to get along." Let me be very, very clear to the men and women of Wisconsin. I will not compromise away your religious liberty. And I will not compromise away your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. The third critical issue in this race is security. For 7 years, we've had a president who abandons our friends and allies, who shows weakness and appeasement to our enemies. Now again, 2 debates ago, Donald Trump explained, if he were president, he said, he would be neutral between Israel and the Palestinians. So let me be very, very clear. As president, I will not be neutral. America will stand unapologetically with the nation of Israel. And anyone who can't tell the difference between our friends and our enemies, anyone who can't tell the difference between Israel and Islamic terrorists who want to murder us, that raises real questions about their fitness and judgment to be commander-in-chief. Just 1 week ago, we were all horrified by yet another terror attack, this time in Brussels. And every time we see one of these attacks, whether it's Paris, whether it's Brussels, whether it's San Bernardino, President Obama goes on national television and refuses to even utter the words radical Islamic terrorism. Instead, he lectures Americans on Islamophobia. This last attack, I think President Obama found it very inconvenient. It interrupted his baseball game with the Castros. And you know, wasn't it delightful to see the president palling around with communist dictators in front of a giant portrait of Che Guevara? Wasn't it remarkable to see a joint press conference where Raul Castro stood up and said, "Let me tell you all the horrible things about America," and then to see President Obama stand up and say, "You know, Raul, I agree with you, America's terrible." Is it asking too much to have a president of the United States who will actually defend the United States of America? Over the last 7 years, we've seen our military weaken, readiness degraded, morale of the troops plummeted. And you know what? As a nation, we've seen this before. We've seen another left-wing Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, weaken and undermine the military. And then in January 1981, Ronald Reagan came into office. And what did Reagan do? He cut taxes, he lifted regulations, small businesses exploded, millions of new jobs. It generated trillions in new government revenue. He used that revenue to rebuild the military, and we bankrupted the Soviet Union and won the Cold War. I intend to do the the exact same thing with radical Islamic terrorists. And pass a flat tax and pull back the regulators and stop amnesty. And we're going to see millions and millions of new jobs created in America. It's going to generate trillions in new revenue for the government. And we're going to use that revenue to rebuild this military so it remains the mightiest fighting force on the face of the earth. No longer will our military be governed by political correctness. We have leaders here at home. We have strong, principled leaders like Sheriff Clark who stand up and keep us safe here. Sheriff also knows how to make a Texan feel at home by wearing his boots. But I'll tell you, Sheriff, for the jihadists across the face of the globe, come January 2017, a day of reckoning is coming. We are not going to weaken. We are not going to degrade. We are going to utterly and completely destroy ISIS. Shameful aspects of the last 7 years has been this president sending our fighting men and women into combat with rules of engagement so strict that their arms are tied behind their back, that they cannot fight, they cannot win, they cannot defeat the enemy. That is wrong. It is immoral. And come 2017, it will end. Always been reluctant to use military force. We are slow to anger. But if and when military force is needed, we should use overwhelming force, kill the enemy, and then get the heck out. So let's talk a little politics. A year ago, it's 17 Republican candidates. It was an amazingly diverse, young, talented, dynamic field. What a contrast with the Democrats. I mean, the Democratic field consists of a wild-eyed socialist with ideas that are dangerous for America and the world, and Bernie Sanders. But over the course of the year, we've seen what a primary is supposed to do. The field is narrowed. The field is narrowed, and where are we now? Where we are today is there are two candidates that have any plausible path to winning the Republican nomination. Me and Donald Trump. Now, Wisconsin is a battleground. The entire country, its eyes are on the great state of Wisconsin. This state, the men and women here, you have a platform, you have a megaphone where you are speaking not just for this state, but for the entire country. And I will say, for the 65 to 70% of Republicans nationwide who recognize that nominating Donald Trump is a train wreck. That's actually not fair to train wrecks. Nominating Donald Trump elects Hillary Clinton. Hillary not only wins, she wins by a big margin. And if Hillary is the next president, the Supreme Court is lost for a generation, the Bill of Rights is lost, Our kids are buried in trillions more in debt, and we stay in the same economic stagnation we've struggled through the last 7 years. What we are seeing happen in Wisconsin and all across the country is Republicans are coming together and uniting behind this campaign. Of the 17 candidates who started, we've now seen 5 of those candidates come together supporting this campaign. We've seen Rick Perry and Carly Fiorina and Jeb Bush and your own tremendous governor. Manifestation of the unity we need across this country. To win, Republicans have to stand together. We have to unite. If we are divided, we will lose the primary, and we will hand the general election to Hillary Clinton. And it is the men and women here who are taking the lead to make that happen. So I'm here tonight asking for your help. I'm asking for each of you to continue standing up between now and Tuesday. To take it upon yourself, not just to vote, but I want to ask everyone here to vote for me 10 times. Now look, you're not Democrats. I'm not suggesting voter fraud. But if everyone here gets 9 other people to come out and vote on Tuesday, you will have voted 10 times. That's how we win. It's the power of the grassroots. It's the same power that stood with Governor Walker in the battle with the union bosses. It's the same power of the grassroots, the men and women who stood together and said, we can beat the special interests. If we stand together united, we're going to win the Republican nomination. And we are going to beat Hillary Clinton in November, and we are going to turn this country around. It took Jimmy Carter to give us Ronald Reagan. And I am convinced the most long-lasting legacy of Barack Obama is going to be a new generation of leaders in the Republican Party who stand and fight for liberty, who stand and fight for the Constitution, and who stand and fight for the Judeo-Christian values that built this great nation.